Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Now, today we are moving on to one of the most versatile aircraft in the modern inventory, the F-18, the Hornet. And you will see that Greg has, I said last week it was an elaborate headgear for the Prowler. This is worse, Greg. This is probably even more so. But this, I don this headgear with my physicalist assistant because this headgear has significance, Greg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to this, okay? Because later in the show, there's going to be a very important handoff. Normally we toss this to the Kenny, but we're not doing that this time. So we're talking about the Hornet. Now the Hornet is a very interesting airplane from a standpoint that it was born out of a quest. Do you know what that quest was, Greg? The quest was the Navy's VFAX program. The VFAX program was designed to replace all, we've talked about a lot of them in our inventory, the A4, the A7, the A6. The Navy was looking to replace all of those aircraft with a new strike aircraft. And that was where the F-18 initially started.
Tactical aircraft operations. The United States Navy and Marine Corps are experts at it. Their knowledge, gained through combat experience, became the basis of a requirement for a new combat aircraft. The aircraft had to be a fighter. It had to be an attack aircraft. And it had to be better and more efficient than its predecessors. Today, that requirement has been met. The aircraft is called the Hornet, and the Hornet has been launched.
Their first flight was in 1978. It was introduced to the United States Marine Corps in 1983, and it entered Navy service in 1984. It was a derivative of the Northrop, the YF-17, we're going to talk about that, and of the CD. Now there are a number of Hornets out there. There are standard Hornets or with legacy Hornets. And by the way, all these Navy pilots are watching me off camera here today. So if you see me grinning in the video, it's because they're laughing at me off camera, but I'm going to have the last laugh here in a minute. But there were 1,480 of the CD models made. The Vice Admiral Kent Lee was the advocate of the program, and what he was pushing for is, we've talked about before that the Navy had, and a lot of the services, or all the services, had very specific mission-centric aircraft that were being built. The Navy had all kinds of different strike airplanes, different electronic warfare aircraft. The Air Force had all of the Century Series fighters. It had bombers. They went from the transition from jets to props. Both services did. But what they were trying to do was they were trying to consolidate cost. And the reason was, we talked about the GTX program with those big swing wing airplanes like the F-111 and the F-14. And what ended up happening with that was, what was that, Greg? It was Boyd and the F-15 and the advent of CAD, of computer-assisted design. And what happened there was, we went from really big airplanes with those two that I just mentioned to the ability of the designers at the various companies to start to take Boyd's theory about the amount of thrust, the amount of wing energy, and how, or the amount of thrust and the amount of wing and the lift on the wing, and what you could do to play with the wing area to use the optimum thrust out of the jet engines to be able to get the most performance out of the airframe. What that meant was that you made the airplane a little bit smaller. So if you look at this up against it, and Greg will do a walk around, compared to an F-14, an F-14 is gigantic compared to this airplane. The F-14 could do all kinds of interesting things with the swing wing that it had, but the Navy realized once they deployed them, and we've talked about this, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, the swing wing and the sensors that were in the wing, both the Air Force and the Navy said that's too much maintenance. and we've got to get rid of the airplanes because they're getting eaten alive in their maintenance. So hence comes the VFAX program, and Admiral Lee, Defense Secretary Schlesinger, directed the Navy to look at the Air Force's lightweight fighter program. And that had spawned two competitors, the F-16 and the YF-17. Now the YF-17 was a Northrop design.
Northrop's F-18 prototype, beginning another tour with its second international showing and initial debut at the world's largest air show, Paris 77. The aircraft was flown by Northrop Chief Test Pilot Hank Shoto. During the ferry operations, the F-18 prototype logged more than 27 hours of flight time, with only routine turnaround servicing at stops along the way. The Hornet prototype encountered a wide variety of environmental conditions during the journey. Takeoffs and landings were accomplished in adverse weather, all without incident.
Design and McDonnell Douglas got in there somehow. Eventually, the F-18 migrated to Boeing in 1997 through a bunch of company mergers, but that led to a different program that actually had the impact on the F-18 was the Navy Air Combat Fighter program. So Schlesinger directed the Navy to look at the Air Force's lightweight fighter program and the F-16 and the YF-17. When they did that, they looked at that YF-17 and said, that's a pretty cool airplane. What came out of that was the redesign on the F-18 was known as the MD-267. That was the model number under McDonnell Douglas, and that led to what we now know as the modern F-18, and it continues to evolve. It has gone through a whole bunch of different changes. Now interestingly enough, there was an F-18L model. Now the L model was for export, which was a lighter version of the airplane. That eventually got killed because there was a dispute between the various suppliers, and those F-18L orders eventually went to the F-16, and they almost went to another rare airplane, the F-20, the F-20 Tiger Shark, an airplane probably the most capable. I'm gonna get hate mail for this, but the most capable lightweight fighter that was never built. The F-20, derivative of the F-5, and really cool airplane, but it never made it. Now the Hornet continues to be modified, and it continues to be enlarged, as I said, to the Super Hornet, to the the Growler. Now the other interesting thing about the F-18, and then I have a special guest. Do you know, Greg, this is the first time ever in the history of 62 episodes, this is our 62nd episode, that we have ever had a special guest. Is that like cool or what? There's no pressure here for our special guest, but our special guest is going to join us. The F-18 HARV, can you believe that? The HARV was built by NASA. That aircraft on a testbed airplane had directional thrust, it had canards, and it had strakes. It was designed to test extreme angle of attack, and it was actually quite successful for NASA. Now, Greg, we're going to move on. We're not moving to our stage 2 yet because we have a special guest. Can you do in post like some intro music? Okay, we'll have to do some sort of intro music. I have today, and this is really cool. I want to say something. I got to thank the United States Navy and the community and this person for coming down here, Commander Kristen Hansen. Now you've got to walk in here, and Greg will say whether we're a VFA 25. First of all, normally we toss this off, but since your call sign is Dragon, and we expect to see you in this at the change of command ceremony, so you have your dragon hat. They're having a great time with you off camera.
They are. It's like my mother of dragons right here.
Yeah, that's it. So you are now you officially have the dragon hat. So tell me a little bit about you brought these aircraft in, and we are so grateful. We have a Legacy Hornet that is out front of the museum, but you and I have been communicating, and we got a flying version down here. So maybe just tell me, just real quickly, a little bit about this airplane, this type of airplane.
So as you were saying before, this is a F-18 Echo, so from the Super Hornet variant. The easiest way to tell a Legacy from a Super Hornet, I think personally, if they're not right next to each other, you can definitely tell the size difference, but actually the intakes. So a Super Hornet has square intakes, a Legacy aircraft has rounded intakes. But as Fred alluded to, we have come from VFA 25. We're stationed over in Lemoore, so we're an operational squadron. This is actually an older variant of the Super Hornet right now. So this is what they call a Block 1 Hornet. So it was one of the earlier Super Hornets, and it has a mechanically scanned radar, and as Fred was saying, that, hey, we keep upgrading as we go along. Some of the newer ones now have electronically scanned radars, and then some of the Block 3s that are coming down, hopefully this year too, we'll start to see full glass cockpits. So constantly evolving, and I think you alluded to it a couple of weeks ago when you're talking about longevity of design. If you think about it, the Hornet and the Super Hornet have been around for pretty much 40 years now, and we've kept building on it and changing it, and she's still flying. And we've seen from the makeup of the aircraft carrier, we originally had the Legacy Hornets with F-14s and S-3s and a lot of the Prowlers that you guys saw, and then we slowly phased all of that out. We saw the S-3s go away. The F-14s left in about 2006, and for a while there, the only pointy nose aircraft we had on an aircraft carrier was just an F-18 variant, whether it be Charlies to Echo Foxtrots to the Growlers, and now we're starting to see the incorporation of the Joint Strike Fighter, and we're integrating how we fight between the Joint Strike Fighter and the F-18. So they definitely have complementary roles.
Could you talk a little bit about the loadout on the airplane? If it were, what would a combat loadout look like?
So it changes a lot, kind of every air wing, depending on what theater you're in and what your mission is. We'll go on what's called a standard combat loadout, or SCL, and we'll get that approved. And like usually, you'll end up carrying for a Super Hornet about 1,500 to 2,000 pounds of ordnance. So usually about 400 or 500 pound bombs, and that's usually a mix between laser guided weapons and GPS weapons, and that's for more to air to surface fight. If we're doing any defensive combat air patrols, you'll start adding on to AMRAAMs or 9Xs for self-protection. We have the forward-looking infrared that usually goes on the cheek stations. So the Super Hornets have 11 hard points, or 11 weapon stations on them, which was more than you were carrying on the F-18 Charlies and Deltas. The Legacy Hornets only had 9. We upped that to 11 on the Super Hornet, so they had more availability to carry weapons. And the other really important thing is the Super Hornets can bring back more weight to the aircraft carrier. So almost on the order about 10,000 pounds difference of what a Legacy Hornet could land with and what a Super Hornet can land with.
So Dragon, you brought up something that's really interesting to me, and that is the FLIR. Why don't you talk a little bit about what the FLIR does, what you use it for?
So the FLIR is our tool to essentially see what is going on the ground. So we can use it for, if we're doing close air support, so you're working with the JTACs on the ground, and they are trying to talk you on to, say, where the bad guys are at, or any areas that are of interest that they want eyes on from above. That's the tool we use to actually be able to see what was going on the ground. So you can see people walking around, cars driving, houses. You can change the polarity of what you're seeing. So depending on how hot or cold it is, sometimes the different modes can help you get a clearer picture on deck. The thing that's troublesome with the FLIR sometimes, though, it is definitely affected by the environment. So if you have, things that heat up are going to be a lot easier to see. Where you have something that doesn't absorb heat, you're not going to necessarily pick it up being infrared. Or if you have clouds below you, it doesn't do you much good. You can't see the ground for some of that, but it's an extremely useful tool, and we rely on it a lot.
So the F-117, which, we've got one coming in, so we talk about that all the time. It had a downward-looking infrared and a forward-looking infrared, but those were target designators where the airplane is flying waypoints in, and then the pilot literally is head down looking to do what he's going to do. Do you still designate targets like with a FLIR or a downward-looking infrared, or have you gone and maybe talk a little bit about the JDAMs, precision munitions, just in general? Where have you guys kind of migrated to with the modern stuff now?
A little bit of both, actually, still. So it really depends on if they're trying to talk you onto a target that they don't necessarily have coordinates for, or if they have coordinates. So if you're talking to a guy on the ground and they know exactly the point that they want you to look at, they can just verbally tell you what the GPS coordinates are. We're able to type that into our systems, and the FLIR will automatically look at that. That's very helpful too. If you're dropping GPS weapons, you can just directly input those coordinates into, say, a JDAM and have it go to that point. It gets a little more complicated if that target is moving, or if you're just trying to do it visually, like, hey, I know I want to hit that building. He has to get you in the general vicinity, and then we actually start having a two-way conversation about, hey, does what I think I'm looking at match what you want me to look at? And that's something we practice a lot before we go overseas, to make sure that give and take of information works out. And then, if the FLIR helps us, we can designate targets with the FLIR. We have a couple other systems too in the jet that help you be like, yep, that's what I want. I want to make that where I'm going to put my weapons, and either laser guided or, again, GPS is what we primarily use these days.
Well, it's interesting. We talked about, like, with the A6 or the F-111 that had that lantern pod that would drop out of the airplane and then give them an aim point, right? And it was more an inertial guidance system in the airplane, as opposed to these munitions now, where you kind of just tell them where you want them to go, and whatever's in them kind of tells them, okay, that's where we're gonna go, right? I mean, that's kind of where we are with the smart weapons.
A little bit of both. So, we usually call it, say, GPS aided. So all the weapons have, as you were saying, their own inertial guidance to them for the most part anyway, or you drop them on a ballistic release point that puts them into a basket that gets the weapon to a point that, hey, if you're guiding it with laser energy, when it starts looking for that laser energy, it will be in a vicinity that the weapon's able to acquire it. Or in the case of the JDAM, if it never acquires satellites, which is possible, you don't know if it is or if it isn't, it's up to the weapon, it will still get close. And we take into account in mission planning, when it comes to, we talk a lot about collateral damage to make sure that we are only hitting what we want to hit, and that the weapon is not going to stray anywhere that would injure civilians or hit something that's not our target. Whether that weapon's going to acquire GPS or just use its inertial navigation, we take a look at a lot of that in mission planning factors to make sure that it gets in the vicinity of where we want and it meets those mission planning assumptions.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit. What we're going to do now is, before I get you into your base discussion, this is a day of firsts. First, we give you the hat, which we've never done, and have a guest. Now, I do this thing called a stage 2. Greg has 3 jobs. One, he makes me look remotely stupid, right? I mean, that's what he's looking at me. Not very intelligent, which is okay. I wear the hat.
Greg's going to make me look
He's going to make you look great. You're going to look wonderful. And the other thing is we go to the stage 2, which is we do a salute. And I thought today, maybe I'd let you do the stage 2. Now, Greg usually picks the most strange and disgusting soda possible. And I know we talked about off camera, do I have to drink all of it? No, there's only 2 sips. That's the deal I made with them. How this all started was back when we were locked up during COVID. We just went, we'll go do something in a hangar. That's how Warbird Wednesday started. So I'm going to give you the stage 2. This is Jones. It's 170 calories, so 2 sips should be pretty cool. So go ahead, and what I'm going to do is let Dragon kind of pop the top on that thing.
You did warm it up for me.
Yeah, I did. It's Greg always says that. Oh, and it's live too.
It's live.
It's live. So today, I think what we want a couple of things. One, all you Hornet drivers out there, past, present, we salute you. Thank you, all the folks that are with the Hornet community, whether it's pilots, maintainers, armors, people who designed it, the contractors, the folks that are training, because we're going to talk about that. And I'm just stretching this out so that you don't wear that when you open it, because you're working through it. So to all the folks that are in the Hornet community, we salute you.
think
All right, Dragon, there you go.
I think we just got to go for it at this
It's
point.
a salute here. You got to get 2 of those down. There we go. There we go. All right. Wow.
It's not bad.
Not bad.
Little
Not
warm,
bad.
but not
so,
bad.
Greg, not bad. You got to pass. So, I think this is just a very cool airplane, and you mentioned something about longevity. I mean, if you think about it, it's been around 40 years. And it's kind of like we were standing in front of, we did a C-130J, right? You figure out how old a C-130 is, and those things are still flying. It's just amazing. This aircraft is going to be with us for some time, even with the F-35 running around. But more importantly, you flew down here. You brought the birds down here. Tell us a little bit about base and what you guys do up there.
Yeah, so we're home ported out of NAS Lemoore. So in terms of F-18s, the Navy has 3 major bases we fly them out of. One in Virginia Beach, out in Oceana, and then we have Lemoore, California, and we also have a base out in Japan. So those are the 3 places that you end up going if you go through flight school and select F-18s. And then me personally, I have been in Lemoore since 2006. I left for about 3 years to go up to NAS Fallon in Nevada, and then back over to Lemoore. So we have about half the carrier air groups are run out of Lemoore. So what happens, everybody has the group that you're going to go out to the aircraft carrier with, and all the Hornets will either come from the west coast to the east coast. The Helos, same thing, down from either San Diego or come out of Jacksonville. The Growlers come out for Whidbey, and we all meet on the aircraft carrier when we go out to sea. So when we're home ported, we'll train together. We kind of you have sister squadrons, or squadrons that are kind of on your same training cycle. So there's already somebody that is out to sea getting ready for deployment. Our squadron in particular, they came back from sea last year, so in what we're called a maintenance phase. So it gives time for the maintainers to get in, make sure that these guys are well maintained, taken care of, scheduled maintenance can happen so they can fly with us for many more years to come. And there's a constant rotation out there. So every day we have flight schedules. Everybody's training for either qualifications or to maintain currency and proficiency. And then once in a while I get to do cool things and come visit you guys.
And come down and visit us. That is great. And what I want to do is, first of all, say thank you so much. You're an honoree at one of our events at our gala like 3 or 4 years ago. We want to thank you and all that you do. I mean, it's just amazing. The fact, I want to say thank you to the United States Navy and the command at your base and everybody for having you come down. We really appreciate it. I want to say to Loner and Tugger, who are also in the aircraft, thank you for coming down. We appreciate it. And I want to thank you for watching. Now, Greg is an excellent host, and he actually brought out a Blue Angel shirt. You can check out the Air Museum homepage on this shirt if you want to find out about that. And so, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. My name is Fred Bell. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. We hope we earned your subscription today. Like us on YouTube, like us on Facebook. You have a great day.